In 2024, Hyundai gave us the Ioniq 5N, and the motoring press and the buying public were enraptured by it. The thing is, however, before there was the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, there was another very, very fast all-electric car from Korea. And this one wore a Kia badge. It was the EV6 GT. The problem, however, with the EV6 GT was, whilst it was fast, it wasn't exactly fun. Well, now Kia's been hard at work, and there's a new one. And boy, is this different. Really different. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the newly revised Kia EV6 GT. And as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of Kia's new EV6 GT, it is of course the time where I would just ask you to make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. When you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll receive a notification when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the review, if you enjoy it, and I sincerely hope you do, make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course, as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars we feature on the channel, such as the new EV6 GT, and of course, on AutoEV's channel overall. Now, just a little caveat, you will hear cars going past, because I'm up in Scotland, I'm up in the Grampians, the Lech ski centre's just literally at the top of that road there, and I thought this was a really, really nice spot to sort of like get the car filmed, because you've got a lovely view behind us there. But there is the occasional car goes past, so apologies about that, but I thought it was worth it for the view. So right, let's crack on. Let's start talking about the EV6, because the EV6, I think, is a car that really turned Kia's fortunes round. They had been building good cars up to that point. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they were rubbish cars beforehand. In fact, we were a massive fan of the e-Niro that had gone before. The thing with the e-Niro, however, was, whilst it was a great electric car, it was a little bit plain to look at. You know, it was still that sort of almost sensible Kia, you know what I mean? It was great to drive, great family car, but just a bit sensible to look at, like a nice pair of slacks. This is like a real pair of proper Levi 501s, or a really nice suit, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, Kia became known as a stylish car company. You know, design was then added to their list of attributes. And they went one stage further, because when they brought the EV6 out, they brought it out in GT form, 577 horsepower for dual motors. It was fast. The problem was, it wasn't that much fun. It wasn't the best EV6. The fastest, undoubtedly. The best? No. You were better off coming further down the range. It just felt a little bit, it wasn't really sure what it wanted to be. It was just fast, and that was sort of it. It didn't do anything more than the standard cars, which weren't exactly slow cars in fairness. But of course, Hyundai changed the game somewhat last year with the Ioniq 5N. They really upped the game. And all of a sudden, we know that sort of like, you know, performance EVs can now be fun. They can now be for the drivers, if you like. And Kia's gone back to the drawing boards. Yes, there's a lot of technology that's shared with Hyundai with the Ioniq 5N. But if you think this is just an Ioniq 5N wearing a set of Kia clothes, you're going to be very, very mistaken indeed, because what Kia have done to this car is little short of a revelation in my book. However, as always, before we start the full review, let's look at the main points about Kia's new EV6 GT. So the new EV6 GT pushes the power from dual motors from 570 horsepower of the old car up to now 641 horsepower in this car. The car also benefits from the styling changes that were made to the regular EV6 in 2024. It's now fitted with a larger 4th generation 84 kWh battery capable of delivering a WLTP driving range of up to 279 miles. It will accelerate to 60 miles an hour from a standstill in just 3.5 seconds and go on to 161 miles per hour where permitted. And it's priced from £59,985 before options. So more power, more performance, more range, more technology at a lower price. It all starts to sound a little bit too good to be true. Which means, is the GT still sort of like not really the EV6 that you want? Is the real sweet spot in the range still further down? Well, the only way we're going to find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric car. And even up here in the Highlands of Scotland, it is still the AutoEV one. Right, now as always we're going to start with styling, which shouldn't take too long because obviously we've done the revised EV6 and of course now the GT follows what went before back in 2024. So of course you've got your new lights at the front, the new Star Map style headlights, which I have to admit, last year when I reviewed the facelifted car I wasn't quite sure about it. I thought, oh no, I quite like the old car, I like the way it looked. Now I've seen more of them and I've spent more time with it, I'm starting to really like this, I really quite like it. I'm still not sure which one I prefer, but I have to admit, I really do quite like the style of the car. It really suits this front end. It's a very sharp looking front end. And of course, because it's the GT, the light bar continues across between the lights. On the Air model, you don't get that, whereas on the GT and the GT lines, it does, it moves across. You get this lovely brushed aluminium Kia badge there on the front now. This is a new colour as well. This is Yacht Blue Matte. Now, we'll talk about colours just in a little bit, but this is the most expensive colour option you can get. And actually, it's the most expensive option you can put on the car at £1,500. It's not my personal taste. I don't, my big love of these matte colours, but you know, some people might like it. But there you go, a new colour. Reprofiled front air dam here as well, plus active cooling. So you've got the flaps obviously that open and close to allow more airflow in through here. The only downside with filming next to a road that's in such a beautiful part is you do get a lot of traffic, even for this time in the morning, so apologies. Yeah, so there's a lot more sort of like active cooling goes on down here, and these will open and close depending on obviously what's needed. You get your obviously your sensor there for your radar guided cruise control. You know, sort of like just little bits of flashes of sort of like a matte silver aluminium in there as well, and some gloss black detailing down the front. And it is a slightly different front spoiler on the GT than it is to the rest of the cars, but it's still quite a Q car, isn't it? You know, when you look at it and you look at, say, the Ioniq 5N, which is a very different style to the standard Ioniq 5. And that's what's quite nice about this. And as I say, the GT badge will become quite more prominent as we go through the review and what it's going to stand for. But yeah, it's the EV6 as we know and love it. Round the side, it's the same. New wheel design, 21-inch wheels that you get on the GT with this new wheel design. I prefer the old wheels. I do. I think the old wheels look nicer. You know, the 5-spoke design. But, you know, these are still nice. I like these, but I do prefer the old ones. You still get the lime green or neon green brake calipers to say that you've obviously got the GT model. So that's the sort of telltale sign that lifts the car. But again, look at the way that light moves into that wheel arch extension there and just curves round down there. I really like the EV6. I think it's such a good looking car. A lot of gloss black detailing down at the bottom, which then kicks up here into the wheel arch and then extends through this reflector into this rear ducktail spoiler. And of course, as usual, you've got almost that kind of jet fighter canopy sort of like window line there that comes down at the back into this sort of like, you know, the spoiler again. But as I say, it's not, you know, real standoutish like, as I say, the Ioniq 5N. It's a very different style of car because it's a very different drive of car as well. Still loads of tech on the car there. Obviously, you get your blind spot monitoring cameras down there. Obviously you got cameras round the car, obviously reversing camera and such like as well. But yeah, still a good looking car, isn't it? Now the other colours, white is a standard colour, so it's white you get as standard. Then you've got the premium paints, which is runway red, the black metallic, which I can't remember, and I think they call it storm grey as well, which is a metallic grey finish on the car. But and then, as I say, they're about £700, I think £675, but it's £1,500 if you want this matte yacht blue, which most of the press cars have been in fairness. But I did see a black one. One of the chaps here's got a black one, and that does look quite sinister looking. I quite like the black. But hey, colour's a personal choice. And around the back, well, familiar EV6, isn't it? I mean, you'd struggle to tell there's really any changes at the rear of the car. There is, with the facelifted car, you know, got slightly different sort of like rear lights there. The GT gets a slightly reprofiled part here, so it's more of a ducktail spoiler. This spoiler is just slightly more sort of like, you know, sort of like profiled there, which is quite cool. And of course, with that the roof spoiler there as well, that helps with airflow and keeps the car sort of like, you know, firm on the ground. You've also got this redesigned rear diffuser as well, so that's different as well. And again, the gloss black sort of treatment around here and the upright reflectors, just a very simple GT badge. That's really the only other apart from the calipers and the wheels, that's the only way you can tell that it is the GT. And there's your reverse camera there, and obviously parking sensors. Look, we don't need to go on about it, do we? Because it's familiar enough. But what do you think? I really like, as I say, I'm not a great lover of this colour, but I get some people will absolutely go a bit crazy on it. But I think it's a great looking car. And as I say, I now do like that front end. I think I've seen it more. I think it really suits the EV6, but I'm not quite sure why I prefer the style of the old lights, but there we go. And I do prefer the old wheels, but I love the EV6. I think it's a great looking car. And as I say, it was the car that, for me, that showed Kia's design as being a real sort of like leader, you know, in terms of what they were doing with their cars. But as I say, it's not an Ioniq 5N, is it? You know, it's not that sort of standout performance, look at me, here I am sort of car. That's the important bit, GT. But look, what I think doesn't really matter. It's what you think that matters. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Have you got the old EV6 GT? Do you like the new one? Do you like the fact they've still kept it really, really subtle? Have you got a regular EV6? Why did you buy it? Did you buy it over the Ioniq 5N? Do you prefer it over, you know, sort of things such as, you know, the Volkswagen ID5 and ID4 and things like that? Just let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll stop talking now. Right, well, it's still practical, and we're not going to really have any difference in terms of sort of practicality of it. 480 litres of boot space, plus there's an additional 20 litres under the front bonnet. You know, you can store a cable in there or something like that. It's not as huge as, you know, obviously you get in some other cars, but obviously it's a dual motor car, that's why it's smaller. And I've always found the boot a little bit shallow, but it's certainly big enough in terms of its actual overall space. There's a tiny little bit of underfloor storage, as we know and love with the EV6, where you can actually store your neat little cable bag, which goes in there, and also your vehicle to load adapter as well, because remember, that's what the car has, vehicle to load. I don't have obviously a big suitcase with me, but you can see my big rucksack and all the rest of it's in there as well. You can obviously fold the rear seats down from the back. You can pull on this lever and that will flip the rear seat down as well, so that's quite handy. And of course, you still got the standard roller blind there. But as I say, it's no different to the standard EV6 in that point of view, so it's still a practical, fast car. Right. Some changes up here, and again, like the back, subtle changes but really welcome changes. Okay, the first thing to mention is the bucket seats that you get, same as you had before in the GT. Really supportive, good lateral support. You can also get the open sort of bit at the back there, integrated head restraint. But look, they're now electric. Yay, well done, Kia. So you've got 8-way power adjustment on both seats with a 2-stage memory position on the driver's seat. Fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Electric steering column as well. Just while I'm talking about the steering wheel, however, the only thing I will say about this, it's the new sort of Kia 3-spoke. This isn't the GT's fault, it's just the way it is. These little button packs here, and I am glad it's got physical buttons, I just tend to find they bulge out a little bit too much for the heel of my hand. It'd be nice if almost they'd gone in a little bit or made them slightly thinner. That's my only criticism of that wheel, however. It's a really nice shape, it's a really nice girth. You get obviously the neon a marker at 12 o'clock and the neon stitching to match the rest of the interior, which, by the way, as I say, is this artificial suede is gorgeous. I really like it. Holds you really well. You know, I've been throwing it round the roads up here and it just grips you. Nice that they haven't gone leather, they've gone for this sort of like suede. I really like that. And then you can see little flashes of that neon green and things such as, you know, the air vent things there, and of course the GT button that we'll talk about when we're driving it. Right, I'm not going to go on really about the display because obviously we've done this before, okay? So it's good. You get standard Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which is wireless. All your bits and pieces are in here. There is an important screen in here, which I'll just very quickly show you, which is the settings one. If you come in here and you go into vehicle, your drive modes, this is important. So this is where you're going to set things up, okay? So, you know, there's various different things that you can do, and I am going to talk about this when we're out driving the car. But things, yeah, I'm not going to spoil it. Keep watching the video, I'll show you. But that's where it all is, that's where you go in here. And then obviously you can go in there to change various different things. You can also have a digital key now as well, so you can use your phone, obviously, which you can share with other people as well. And then you've also got your driver assistant modes as well. Now, usual Kia, really handy. You've got the long, I think it's just over 3-second press on the volume button of the steering wheel will turn your turn your speed limit warning off, and then you've got your lane keep assist button on here, which you can press and hold and turn that off. You know, apart from Renault's My Perso button, it is the simplest, you know, sort of like deactivation of ADAS systems you can get. brilliant, and I love it. Okay, right, so that's the screen. We're not going to talk about that too much. Obviously, you've got the driver's display as well in front of you, which will change it'll change graphics depending obviously on which mode you're in as well. But that's still one of the best you can get. It's a really nice screen. They haven't moved the climate control to have the third screen here like you get on, say, the EV9 and EV3, and I'm glad they haven't. It's still got this little I don't know what you call it, binnacle if you like, underneath here, where in one section, if you have it, it's the aircon controls, and if you press it, it then goes to your media controls. I love that. I've always loved that, and it's still there, so I'm glad they've kept that. What they've got rid of, however, is piano black. Yay! It's gone. Banished. No more piano black. We've got this textured sort of like gunmetal finish around here. Yes, it's plastic, but it's nice actually, and I'd rather have this than piano black, you know, so that's really nice, and it's on the doors as well. So yeah, no more piano black. Well done, Kia. And I really like this sort of textured material up on the dash. That's really cool too. 2 cup holders, as you can imagine, as you obviously see fit. You've got a wireless charging pad here for your mobile phone, which is now more powerful, 15 watts, and it's got a grippier rubber surface, so your phone doesn't slide around and rattle around, which is a really good idea, and it's ventilated as well, so obviously it keeps your phone nice and cool. And then there's your usual gear shift, your transmission rotary dial here, so press for park, twist to the left for reverse, neutral, and then drive. Your start button there. And then you've got sort of like the buttons here for the ventilated seats, heated steering wheel. So they're sort of like, you know, just buttons that are just on the, they're touch sensitive, but you don't need them to be any more than that, with the just like ancillary controls. There's still a lot of physical buttons, you know, for the steering wheel, which is nice. So for your calls, for your volume, for your cruise control, the GT button, and then obviously you get physical controls for things like, you know, electric mirrors and stuff over there. The climate control system being here, you've still got rotary dials for temperature, and then you've just got like the touch screen for the fan. But I don't mind that too much. It all works, and it works really well, so that's good. What was I going to talk about there? Can't remember now. There's storage in there as well, which is groovy. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. There's a fingerprint recognition reader here as well now, so you get fingerprint recognition on the GT too. So obviously you've got, you know, set your profiles up in it, you can do it and set everything from there. Down here, obviously you've still got connectivity with USB-C ports as well, and there's still a stack of storage underneath this floating console. Now I really like this design because what it does is it makes it feel still quite open. It still gives you a pile of storage, but you also, oddly enough, feel a little bit more individual as front passengers. Does that make sense? So it's sort of, you know, you've got a distinctive driver environment, a distinctive passenger environment, but it doesn't feel too claustrophobic. It still feels like it's open enough and you've got plenty of storage. I love the interior of the EV6. I've always have. I think it's a brilliant place to sit, and I've spent, you know, hours behind the wheel of these things, and I just really always get on well with them. I think they look great. But as I say, the little subtle changes to the GT, which, you know, were brought in with the facelift last year, I'll pop a link into our EV6 facelift review. So if you want to go back for a more in-depth view of things like that, you can do. But the little changes to the GT, you know, just give it a bit of a lift. As I say, I love the seat material. I love the new sort of dashboard material. I love the fact they've got rid of the piano black, and the fact that they've now got the electric seats for me is a massive thing. Because I say, if you've got two, it used to not, when we had the first GT, and I remember it, my wife was driving it as well. Liz was driving it a lot, and she's got a completely different driving position to me, and I was getting back and having to move it, and I thought, you know, on a 60-odd grand car, why has it not got electric seats? Well, it now has with memories, so I love that fact. So yeah, still one of the best interiors in the class, still easy to use, still well built, nice use of materials, a lot of talk of sustainability because obviously it's Kia, and all the changes to the GT that just give it a bit of a lift, such as the stitching and the little luminescent green bits here and there, just give it a little bit of a tweak. Yeah, so a really good interior. I really like spending time in here. So the GT now gets the 4th generation 84 kilowatt hour battery as standard, which should give, according to WLTP figures, a range now of 279 miles. Peak charging power is up by 8% to 258 kilowatts, meaning a benchmark of 10 to 80% can be achieved in just 18 minutes, which is phenomenally fast. You also get a heat pump as standard and an onboard an onboard 11 kilowatt charger as standard as well. And of course you also have the ability to do vehicle to load. But if you're using a more likely standard 7 kilowatt wall box, then it's probably similar to something like in the GT line, EV6, which is 12 hours 45 minutes to go from flat to full. Okay, so there's some big changes to the GT that we need to talk about, because say the last car was certainly fast. That wasn't its problem. It just wasn't very defined in what it wanted to be. I always felt that you weren't really a driver in that car, you were a hostage in an out of control rocket. And as I say, when you drive the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, you really, dare I suggest, understand how electric cars can be very interactive with the driver, and that's what the Kia lacked. It just didn't seem to involve you in its driving. Very different now, okay? So let's just quickly go over the numbers first, because they've changed, okay? So it used to be 577 horsepower, it's now 641 horsepower. Torque is 770 Newton meters. The thing will get to 60 miles an hour from a standstill in 3.5 seconds, and it won't stop accelerating until it gets to 161 miles an hour. So as I say, performance isn't exactly lacking. But what is different now is how the car behaves and how it interacts with you as a driver. And all of a sudden what we now have is a very definitive character, and that character is very much the Grand Tourer. It is a proper GT car. One of the things that I was very critical of the old car was its ride quality. It didn't really have one, if I'm being blunt about it. You know, it was very jiggly. It was very unsettled on the road. It just didn't feel sort of like it was actually, you know, very compliant. I felt like they just stiffened everything up and just made it really, really stiff and just gone, right, that's what we need on a fast car. You need firm suspension. Actually, you don't. What you need is just sort of like an element of compliancy. You need an element of it that's just going to be, well, interactive, as I say. Okay, so what's different? So they've changed the suspension settings. So there's retuned suspension, there's retuned dampers, there's different spring rates on the car as well. They've tweaked, there's an electronic limited slip differential as well. Well, there was before, in fairness. So it balances power between sort of like the two motors, because obviously it's all-wheel drive. You've got a motor at the front, motor at the back. So it balances the power much better. But the big talking point now is it has virtual gear shift technology. In other words, what the Ioniq 5N has. Now, it'd be very easy to just say they've just lifted Ioniq 5N and stuck an EV6 body on it. They haven't. It's a different car. The Ioniq 5N is a little bit more of a car that properly attacks a road. The EV6 GT is a car that flows down the road. You can really get this car into a groove and just get it into a flow. It isn't quite as sharp as the Ioniq 5N, but dare I suggest it doesn't need to be, because it's a Grand Tourer, it's a GT car, and they've really, really properly sorted that out now. So it's all set up in the sense that depending obviously on what I want to do. Now, you've got different drive modes, as you would expect, okay? So you've got your usual suspects of eco, normal, sport, and then snow as well, okay? So that's the other one. But then you've got two more, and that's done via this little neon green button, this little thumb button on the left-hand side of the steering wheel here. So what we now have is GT. So if I press the GT, as before, everything sharpens up. It gets a lot sharper on the throttle, and it's a lot faster. A lot faster. But that's not what really you want, because I think what you really want to do is the second of the modes that after the GT mode, which is My Drive, okay? Because what you can do in My Drive is go in here and change things. So you can go into the screen, and I've set it up so that I've got the Sport Plus throttle, so you've got the performance from the motor. You've got you can change it up, knock the steering back to Sport rather than Sport Plus, so it's a little bit heavier but not in its top setting. I've left the suspension in normal, and I'll explain why in a second, and then I've put the limited slip diff into the sport mode, so it allows a little bit of slip, but it's not completely off, okay? Not that I'm going to need it today, because obviously it's bone dry and it's obviously, you know, very, very grippy out there. Right, let me explain to you now about why the suspension's the important thing for me. Because if you have a suspension that's far too firm, like it was in the old car, when you go over, I don't know, a dip in the road, or you go through a bump and there's a, you go around a corner, there's a little bump in the road or stuff. If it's too stiff, what will happen is you don't have enough travel in that suspension, and what will happen is the wheel will skip. In other words, it will lose contact with the road surface, so you're minimizing the grip, and actually it then just becomes a little bit uncomfortable because you just feel it kind of jolt round and you don't feel in control of it. Whereas if you have it in the normal mode, what you then have is some compliance, you then have some travel, so the wheel will actually go into that dip. It will also do the compression. It won't bounce over over a hump. When it goes into a compression, it'll go right up into the wheel arch. So again, it's not losing contact with the road, so your grip level is far higher, and also your comfort level is better, and that makes so much difference to this car. It's a world of difference, this car now. It is a car that properly flows down a road. These beautiful roads that I'm on, up in the Grampian Mountains, you know, it's like the side of like Aberdeen or the top of Glen Shee and things. It just flows. It doesn't matter what happens on the road. The car just flows through it, and it just soaks everything up. Obviously, you've got these beautiful new bucket seats, you know, which hold you really, really well. The driving position's excellent. But as I say, here on this road, this car now has a purpose. This car is really excelling. It's really shining. Now, I haven't talked about the gear shifts, but I will do that now, because at the moment it's in D, okay? So what you have is, it emulates a 6-speed automated manual transmission, okay? It's very, very odd, and you've got to remember about it, and I'll tell you why in a second. So if I now go into, you've got to sort of like set it up in the sense, I've got to go into the car settings. Where is it? Settings, here we go, vehicle, drive mode, there we are, where is it, vehicle, virtual gear shift, here we go. Right, so now the dashboard has changed, it says D5, okay? It's still driving, but it's now effectively in 5th gear, okay? But if I pull back on the left paddle, now I've got 4th, okay? There's 3rd. You'll probably hear it sort of blip, and it's really, really odd, because if you now accelerate and I leave it in that 3rd, it hits a limiter. And yesterday when I was driving down to Pitlochry, what I did was I pulled out to overtake a slower moving piece of traffic, and I thought, and you're expecting it as an EV just to continue accelerating, and it doesn't. You've got to grab another gear, although it doesn't have any gears. It's really, you've got to do it, because it's making you do it, and that's what I mean. It's now really interactive with you as a driver. It's no longer that you're the passenger, you're the driver, and it transforms this car. This car just flows over this road. See, if this was in this sort of like really stiff suspension, I'd be really crashing through these bumps, and you know, over the rises, I'd be losing sort of like grip. I'm not. It's a joy to drive along here, an absolute joy. And if you want to then go back to sort of like auto mode, where the car does it for you, you just hold back on the right hand paddle, and it now moves itself into drive, and it will now change gear for you. It's so good. It's so good. And as I say, it makes such a difference. The other thing that you might hear is there is a noise from the car. They've put in an engine noise, but it's not really an engine noise. The difference with the Hyundai is, I think they took an i30N and recorded its engine note and exhaust note and tweaked it and played with it and put that soundtrack in. Kia don't have that. They've just basically gone and just got a digital noise and gone, right, let's just put, you know, sort of like an engine noise in it. And it's not an engine, but it's like, as I say, it's a digitized sort of like thing. But it works. It just works. I mean, as I say, and I know people are going to say, oh, it's all fakery, but if those are the same people that are saying that EVs aren't fun, why not have a bit of fun with it? Why not do something like that? Why not change it? It's maybe a little bit droney at times. You can turn it off, in fairness, but you wouldn't really want to if you're using the manual gear shift, because that's what you're relying on to let you know that you need an upshift, although it does actually have a rev counter of sorts there. I can't tell you the difference this has made to this car. I genuinely, yesterday, there was a part of me thought, I think it's maybe just going to be the same. It's a bit faster and it's got these paddles now. But it's not. It's the way you can tailor the car now, how you want it. The way that you can put it into that My Drive and you can set it up how you want it. It makes such a difference. And all of a sudden, the GT is elevated from being probably what was the worst EV6 to now being the best EV6. This is a phenomenally good car. Now the GT has actually come down in price from the old car. It's £59,985 now, so it's not exactly a cheap car, but as I say, it's less expensive than it was before. And the only option that you can really put onto the car is, as I say, the option of paint. So you either go for one of the premium paints, I think they're £700, or you go to this matte yacht blue finish, which is the most expensive, about £1,500. So, you know, you've got to think in some respects, whilst I don't want to call it a cheap car, obviously, it's better value for money than it was before, because obviously you're getting the more power, more technology, faster charging speeds, a bigger range because you've got a bigger battery. You still get Kia's 7-year warranty with it, and it's cheaper to buy in the first place. Hard to see the downside. So naturally, when we talk about competition for the EV6 GT, our thoughts are going to turn to the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. It's only natural that we're going to compare it to that car. But as I say, it's a very different car. You know, the two cars have a very distinct style, their own unique sort of like brand of, unique set of skills, as Liam Neeson would say. And each one may appeal to a slightly different driver than the other. But it's only natural you're going to compare the two. Other chaps, enjoy your ride. Other cars you're going to compete with. Well, of course, we have to talk about the Ford Mustang Mach-E GT as well, because that's another style of D-segment crossover SUV style of car. A lot of power, a lot of performance. You know, wearing the GT badge. But it's quite expensive, you know, when you think about what this, you know, the fact this is now a lower price as most. It's widened that gulf between the Mustang Mach-E and this car quite a bit. So, you know, but in fairness, you might also consider it too. You would probably also maybe consider the Genesis, you know, the GV60 Sport Plus, which obviously uses this EMGP platform as well. And of course, it's a very powerful car. But again, it tries to sort of veer towards the luxurious side rather than sporty side. So again, maybe it's a different style of car for a different style of customer. Who knows? The car I think that sort of runs it quite close in some respects is the Polestar 4. I think it's a very, very similar style of car. You know, I'm not sure Polestar maybe see it as a rival for this car. I don't know, but I certainly do. I think the Polestar 4 dual motor car is certainly a rival for the EV6 GT. And maybe, just maybe, I'm not sure about this one if I'm being blunt about it, maybe something like the Porsche Macan as well. That might be a car that you might consider, but I don't think so. And again, its starting price is a little bit more. One car that we maybe tend to forget a little bit about in some respects, but I don't think we should, is the BMW i4 and its M50 guys, because I think that could be a rival for this as well. So here's what we like, and also what we don't like about the new Kia EV6 GT. Well, we still love its design, with the subtle Q-car looks. The changes to the driveline and chassis now give the car a more clearly defined purpose, transforming the driving experience. And all of that comes at a lower price. We don't like. Well, we're still not sure if we prefer the looks of the old car, but we are genuinely struggling to see any downsides with the new EV6 GT. The Kia EV6 has always been a real favourite of ours. It's a brilliant car, always has been. And I think, as I say, it was the car that really turned people's attention towards Kia, especially from its design point of view. But it wasn't just the way that it looked, it was the way that it drove. It was refined, it was comfortable, it had great electrical architecture, which meant it had decent range and brilliant efficiency. In fact, it's probably one of the best cars in that D segment category that you could buy. But the GT, that was a slightly different kettle of fish. They made it fast, but they didn't make it better. In fact, if anything, they made it slightly worse because it wasn't really sure what it wanted to be. It didn't really have a clearly defined role within the range. It was, as I say, that little bit of that kind of Batman and Bruce Wayne thing. It wasn't sure what character it had to be. And as I say, that for me made it actually a worse car in the EV6 range. But this new one, this new GT, is a very different beast indeed. Kia have made some very, very big changes to this car. They look small on the outside, but trust me, it all adds up to be make a big difference to this car. And now it has a more clearly defined role. Now it knows exactly what it wants to be and what it actually is. Because not only have they now made a great EV6, but I think they could possibly have made the greatest one of them all. Thank you for watching another road test review on AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then when you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you've enjoyed this week's review, brought to you from sunny Scotland, then of course make sure you give a little thumbs up, and as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of the new Kia EV6 GT? Have you got the old one? Would you be tempted by the new one? Have you got a lesser EV6 and now you've been thinking maybe I'll make a step up? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Now, remember we're across on all social media as well. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X. So please give us a follow there as well, because every little bit helps. And if you're in the marketplace for an electric car, maybe it's not a new EV6 GT. Maybe you're thinking about a second-hand Kia EV6. But you need to know more about it. You want to know what's good about it and what's not so good about it. How do you find out? Well, here's how. Stay on the homepage on the AutoEV YouTube channel, and just at the top there you'll see a magnifying glass. If you type the name of the car you're interested in there, then of course if it's been a new electric car in the UK in the last 5 or 6 years, we've subjected it to the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric car, the AutoEV one. Thanks again for watching. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for joining me up here in Scotland. I'll see you again soon.